Hello, everybody. This is Quad Nine's back with a little weekend update. I made it to Grand Prix Memphis through some icy weather conditions, but got there and had a pretty good time. I did make the mistake of playing in the main event. Haven't been big on standard in a while, but that's what they were playing. So I actually threw, in quotation, actually threw together a list pretty much between midnight and kickoff the next morning. I had to go out and find a Ugin, which wasn't real easy. But I probably could use two. A friend of mine was letting me borrow one, but he was still sleeping when the event was going at the fire, so I just put one on my list and went with it. One didn't have any buys. I did win my first two rounds. Looking back, that was probably more because of my opponent's misplays than my deck or anything, but still had some pretty good games. I didn't win a match after that, so didn't play a whole lot after that. I got to resolve Villainous Wealth for 10. 8, 7, and 6. Surprisingly, I was playing against a green-red opponent, and in game two, I cast it for 6, and he just insta-scoops from 20. He had brought in some sideboard cards against me because I had Frontier Siege and some other things. So he brought in Reclamation Sage that I found out in game three, and I guess he just didn't want me to see that. Of course, I did know that he had a Whisperwood Elemental on top, so I was going to get that. But anyway, the card's pretty fun. Also, Crux of Fate, pretty good. Although my biggest problem was against red decks that had Outpost Siege, because I would never draw a Sultai Charm when I needed it. So they're drawing two. One guy had two out, so he's drawing 3 cards a turn. And even after I 4 for one him with a Crux of Fate, he had a full grip, and I drew a couple too many lands, and that was it. But anyway, enough about standard. It was pretty boring. I hear it was actual Sultai list did win. It was different from mine because it just played a few different cards. But anyway, I liked the deck. It just wasn't tuned well, and I had a decent time playing. But anyway, the next thing I played was this event called Chaos Sealed Draft, and what it was is there's a big box, had a bunch of random packs in it, anything from Urza's Destiny up to Fate Reforged. Now, not all the sets, but they did have Future Sight. They had Modern Masters. They had Planar Chaos. They had Time Spiral. All the Rise of the Eldrazi, World Wake. No Innistrad block, actually, but, some really sweet stuff. Cold Snap randomly was in there. Like I said, all Theros block, couple M sets, Cons, Fate Reforged, so a bunch of different stuff. Wild, crazy stuff. So in what it was, you pulled 6 packs out of the box, and you set 3 aside for your sealed pool, and you drafted the other 3 like a normal draft. So basically the deal was like you just had a real expensive pack that could have really good uncommons and possibly a full and a rare. You probably wanted to, or if you got 2 of the same set, maybe you wanted to have that as your sealed, so your deck would be more cohesive, I guess. And then once you open those 3 that you wanted for your sealed, you kind of knew what direction you wanted to go in. You knew what your strong colors were in those 3 packs, so you could use that for the draft portion. I wound up had a pretty good pull. I had 2 Rise of Eldrazi, 2 Time Spiral, and 2 Journey into Nyx. I sealed the 2 Rise and a Time Spiral and drafted the 2 Journey and 1 Time Spiral. So anyway, this is kind of I got this in the draft portion. It's foil. It actually drew me a lot of cards because I had a Defender theme because I opened a bunch of Rise packs. So there's some strong Defender cards there. Anyway, so this is full. Not bad. Got past this, rare. This was in one of my Time Spiral packs. Didn't actually play it. Probably should have, looking back. I wound up being a little threat light. But it's like a 4/4 flyer for 7 that you can remove stuff. But I had a different plan. Like I said, I had a Defender theme with some one of the common Eldrazi, the Ulamog's Crusher, and I think Emrakul's Hatchling. But anyway, these are some of the better cards. Return to Dust, which is really good in EDH. Angel of Heart Vial was one of my rares from Rise, so that was kind of disappointing. But got this I think this Wield. Got it like 10th pick in one of the Theros packs, and one of my cube is Japanese, so this is replacing it so people can read it for their 2-mana 1-drop. I got in a pack that had nothing for me, Thrumming Stone. Seems pretty good. It's like $4 or $5 card, something like that. Also got this fairly late. I'd borrowed some for the event from a friend of mine or a guy I rode down with. And so I left mine at the house, and I got this one. So now I've got all the Frontier Sieges I could need. And the main card opening in this whole event was Splinter Twin. So I got to put this on a Humble Defector more than once, which is really good. If you don't know, you tap it to make a copy, then you tap the copy to draw the cards, give your opponent the copy, and then it exiles it in step, so they don't get anything. So yeah, just the rounds I won in that event were mostly when I got just to bury them in card advantage. I had an Overgrown Battlement that I got to tap for like 4 one time to cast Ulamog's Crusher on turn 4, which is, I think it's like 8 mana normally, so it's pretty good. Now the other stuff I got was cube related. I traded for some, and some actually got kind of from the event. You see, this is the playmat you got from the main event. This is the Ugin I picked up. It's going in the cube. This is the Gristle brand promo. Some people were shipping them for pretty cheap, like 15 cash, I think, 20 trade. But I keep in mind, I'm like the full Gristle brand going in the cube. And I like this art better than the pack art. I might be alone on that, but I really like it. Of course, I like Jamie Jones, a lot of that stuff. But, I mean, the picture's good. I like it. So, going in the cube. Actually, the guy I borrowed the Frontier Sieges from, he had a full Blood-Soaked Champion, and it's in the cube. So, I was like, okay. So, I just picked that up from him. I get to meet up with Xemit and Mr. LuBuFu. We did a bunch of cube drafts, but in addition to that, Xemit helped me out, introduced me to a couple of people, namely Ogre, to trade for some cards. He set me up with the MTG card advantage guys. They were pretty cool. Did me pretty well on some trades. But the main cards I traded for from Ogre, I got this full Primeval Titan, the pack full, pretty sweet card. And the other big card I was shooting for was this Judge Dark Confidant. I traded him a bunch of stuff like a Modern Masters Dark Confidant and just stacks of other stuff. But it's I think we actually valued it at 170, which is actually kind of low. I mean, people had it for that, but I mean, some people value it more. But anyway, traded for a bunch of stuff for this. I think I came out pretty good because it's all stuff I wasn't using. Really happy to get this card. Wanted one since that came out. Anyway, after that trade, I had some trade stock left. I took all I had or a good bit of what I had to the card advantage people, including like an extra, a couple of Polluted Deltas, a Flooded Strand, a bunch of stuff from Modern. Random foils I don't need, stuff like that. And eventually I got up to about I think it's 240 in trade credit. Actually, it was like 238, but the guy said, sure, whatever, close enough. And I picked up this revised Underground Sea, which is in pretty good shape, if you can tell. They had some for 250. This one was listed at 240. There's a couple nicks on the back, but yeah, pretty happy to pick this up. In addition to that, not want to focus. In addition to that, I also sold a bunch of stuff to Channel Fireball. One of their buyers, Travis, is a friend of a friend, so he hooked me up pretty well. And actually, after it was all said and done, I got these cards and actually made it home with more cash than I left with, which was a good feeling after I paid for the hotel and everything. So that was pretty good. Oh, and the other thing I picked up was this playmat, which I like much better than the Elemental one, but it's pretty cool. It's supposed to be Bill Street with Elvish Presley. You get everything in the audience from Avens to Dragons. So yeah, so it's a pretty sweet mat. This thing's actually already selling on eBay for a good bit. A lot of people like it. I'm a big fan of it. So anyway, in addition to the great time I had, like I said, I got to Cube. Sorry this video's running long, but I got to Cube with my cube, Mr. LuBuFu's cube, and then Xemit's cube. All three, I enjoy drafting with mine, but all three drafts were a lot of fun. Everybody had a good time. I really enjoyed drafting both of their cubes. Mr. LuBuFu has some really cool interactions, very powerful cube. Some cards you don't see had some uncards in there. Symbol Status was one. Who, what, when, where, why? Is there 5? I can't remember, but the 5-way mode card was in there. And just a lot of strong combinations and interactions. And then there's Lengthy Xemit's cube, which is just very powerful, very sweet cube. He's got a ton of altars. If you haven't seen some of his altars he's got done, check out his videos. I drafted a Grixis control deck. I had a like second pick Dark Confidant after first picking Dak Faden. Didn't get enough fixing really, but my highest CMC was 4, which I think was Venzer, and Glenelindra. Had a fistful of counters. I got Tezzeret and Tezzeret Age of Bolus and Dak Faden, and I had about, I think 9 or 10 artifacts, so not a ton, but enough. And there's like signets and a little bit of ramp, so it wasn't bad. It was a lot of fun. I think Xemit beat me both times we played, so hats off to Xemit on that. One time he drafted the fun place. He had a very sick mono red deck that just rolled over me. However, we did get to play some vintage. His friend let me borrow his vintage deck, and Xemit was playing Fastbond Gush, and the deck they let me borrow was Hate Bears, and I think it went 4-1. So deck was pretty fun. Getting a mental misstep. Ancestral Recall is a lot of value, and then you play a Chalice on one and a Thalia, and they're pretty much locked out. There's not a whole lot they can do after that. So and then you get to beat down. So can't say enough about the trip. Really glad I got to go. Probably won't get to go to another one for a while, but definitely glad I made the trip. Got to meet up with those guys and just got to play a lot of Magic all weekend. Most Magic I've played in a long time, live, besides Magic Online. And, these are some pretty sweet pickups for me. I still need a couple more dual lands to actually put them in the cube, but yeah, this is the biggest one. Now I got to get a Tropical Island and a Volcanic. So on to the next step, but hopefully I'll get some packs. I did pick up some packs. I'm not opening them now. This video's long enough, but I'll kind of spread those out, and we'll get some cool pack openings soon enough. But let me know what you think in the comments below, and thanks for watching.